This is a great group. I love it. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
And first off, I'll introduce Eleni. Eleni is our everything at Bright Futures except the chiropractor. She does wears a lot of hats over there, including, pertinent to tonight, she has her master's degree in human nutrition, and she does our one-on-one coaching for lifestyle and nutrition at Bright Futures. So feel free to ask her questions, even as we go through the night. If there are pertinent questions that are kind of Eleni's wheelhouse, she can do that. So that's a start there, and I'm Dr. Chris Grier. There's a lot of new faces here, so that's always exciting. We do a lot of education through Bright Futures, and that's what I'm going to start with tonight, is this burning desire I have to help people understand that the solution to health problems is healthy people.
Right.
Okay? The solution to health problems is healthy people. And absent from the entire discussion for the past 12 months now has been that, right? There are 3 tiers of healthcare. There's the treatment tier, and we absolutely need that. People who are sick, people who are injured, people who need their lives saved and then stabilized. Hey, Bonnie, we've got a couple of chairs here.
Let me know if you need more chairs. I can get you some.
Okay, yeah, maybe if you could put a few in the back just in case people show up as we go. Okay, so those 3 tiers again, back on that. The treatment tier, that's the lowest level, and that's where people are injured, people are sick, people need either like life-saving intervention or get stuff stabilized. We absolutely need that, right? The second tier is the prevention tier. And boy, have we heard a lot about that tier this past year, right? This is all things that we hope to do so that we do not get sick. Okay, and that's important too, right? So what have we heard for this entire past year? We've heard wear your mask, wash your hands, stay away from other human beings, right? Like that's been the story, and those things are all aimed so that people don't get sick. What's been absent from the discussion otherwise is how people actually get healthy.
Yeah.
And that's been very frustrating to me as a career wellness educator. That's been very frustrating to me. And just last week, you guys were seeing my emails and that sort of thing coming out. I mentioned this, and I linked to the article from the Washington Post that identified that in countries where 50% of their population or the adult population or less are overweight or obese, so when that is 50% or less, those countries experienced 1/10 of the COVID deaths of populations where it was above 50%. Finally, a major media source reporting on that sort of thing. Finally, we haven't had it otherwise. So I hope that the tail end of this thing gets that out when everybody looks at the data and says, oh my goodness, the answer is healthy people, right? Because that is the answer, and that's what we get to dig into tonight. We don't have forever because the Y does close, but I'm going to keep things snappy. And the good news is when we take the appropriate approach to health, which what we do is that third tier. That's what Bright Futures does. We do that third tier where it is certainly if there are issues, we want to stabilize that and get it, back to a point where our person can grow from there. But our real intent is to help people who want to be healthier, and that's where we like to take people. So there's a trap, however, and we want to stay out of the trap. This from a book called The Pleasure Trap. We now live in a world that is both artificial and wondrous in the eye blink of a single century. The timeless threats of scarcity and its misery have been all but conquered by most of the world's people. For this we should be more than thankful, but the road before each of us is still filled with great challenges. That pertains to our talk tonight because the issues that we face with nutrition, weight loss, and health are completely different than human beings have ever experienced in the history of man before. We have never had abundance. We have always had scarcity when it comes to food. Our genetics expect scarcity. When we give it abundance, stuff goes wrong, And that's exactly what we've experienced since 1960, by the way. Interesting bit, and I'll start discussing, I'll put in a few plugs for next month's workshop, which is about breathing. And you might think like, well, I breathe, why do I have to come to that? Well, it's going to be really important, and in a book I'm reading about that, they point out that they kept data from 1890 to 1960, and in that period of time, the average 6-foot person would weigh 160 pounds, so they'd have a BMI of 20 to 22. This is what that looks like, okay? That was the average person, a BMI of 20 to 22. Since 1960, that's gone to the average BMI of being 29, okay? And 30 is considered obese. So, yikes, right? In that short of a period of time. That's the eye blink that they talk about in the book. And here's what our genetics expect. They expect us to still live in this wild hunter-gatherer world where our diet consists of low to moderate carbohydrates, 0 of which are refined, right? None, 0. Moderate good fat, high protein, no refined foods, no dairy, no sugar. Our hunter-gatherer friends weren't chasing down the ox or the bison and having dairy products, right? We weren't. And I'm not completely against dairy products. I'll let you know like how to do that healthfully today if you're not sensitive to it. But that's what our genetics expect. What we have now, though, in the industrialized modern human is high refined carbohydrates in our diet. We've been taught since the 70s to avoid fat at all costs. So for the most part, we have a relatively low-fat diet. We have a relatively low-protein diet also because, again, since the 70s, we've been told red meat's bad for us. And then we have a ton of sugary foods because we bought into this idea of, well, everything in moderation. As long as I do everything in moderation, I should be fine. Well, our baseline for what's actually moderate is completely different because the baseline for sugary foods was 0, right? So a little bit of sugar at each meal and each snack during the day is not moderate consumption of sugar, according to our genetic composure. So that's what we're up against, right? And that has happened in the blink of an eye as far as human beings are concerned. This has happened since the late 1800s and largely since the mid 1900s. So that's how quickly that has happened. So we are a wellness office. We want to promote health and wellness. And so in that, over my first, say 5-6 years of practice, this June I'll be in practice 14 years. The first 5 or 6 years, I developed what we call the Thrive formula. And this is where we work from. Day in and day out, I'm working with people in the Thrive formula. And it's a simple formula with very few blanks that leads a person to thriving. And it does it every time because it's set up to deliver what our genetics expect. And that's what allows a person to thrive and be healthy. And that starts with the idea that we have lifestyle components. And I like to make things as simple as possible. 3 lifestyle components that we deal with: physical things, biochemical things, and emotional things. All of these are important. All of these are absolutely crucial. The physical things, the things we do with our body, our exercise, if we've had any injuries, how much we sleep, all of those sorts of things, the micro traumas that we put ourselves through from too much sitting, looking at our devices, all of that stuff. That's the physical component. The biochemical component, the things we eat, the things we drink, the things we get exposed to. This is what we're focusing on today. And then there's that emotional component, which is the largest component for sure, and it's all of the things that go on psycho-emotionally with us. Our family connections, social connections, spiritual connections. This is where, basically, however it is that you're going to view the world or respond to the situation you're in, that's the emotional component. So anything that we do fits into one or more of those buckets. So that's the lifestyle side of it. We actually, as I'll have in a slide later, I talk about 5 health fundamentals that encompass those. What we're never ever taught though, because you guys, if I said, okay, how do we get healthy? You guys would say, well, we need to exercise, we need to eat right, and we need to make sure we manage our stress appropriately. You guys would come up with all of that, right? And you would come up with a great list if we wanted to just hash that out right now. So we have that construct. What most of us don't have as a construct is the idea that our nervous system, so our brain, our spinal cord, all of the nerves that come out from there that serve every cell, every tissue, every organ in our body, that is what allows our lifestyle to either produce positive results or mitigate against the negative results if it's working well. And if it's not working well, then no matter what we do positive, it's not going to have as good an effect as what it could. Or if we do negative things, which is the standard American way, then it's going to have a larger detrimental effect and it drags us down. So the first part of that Thrive formula is to have a healthy functioning nervous system. And this is exactly what we aim for at Bright Futures Chiropractic. With the work that I do as the chiropractor, I'm working on helping people have a healthy functioning nervous system. So what our first visit for that looks like is, man, we gather a ton of information about people. We do a full consultation and health history. We do an examination that includes looking at the nervous system through lots of different lenses, 3 different technological lenses, spinal x-rays, along with my work looking at how the spine's moving, how it's positioned, the health of that spine, because we want to know how that nervous system is working. And then we do, in the consultation part, we learn about a person's lifestyle, physically, chemically, emotionally, so that we can see if we can help a person get to their goals. And I put all of that together into a report. If it looks like we can help a person with their goals, then great, I'll let them know. If it looks like we can't, I'll let them know that too, but at least we know. And that entire process is very, very valuable and sets us off on a course that has really helped a ton of people in the past 14 years. So the second thing we need to do after we have a healthy functioning nervous system is add the lifestyle factors. We need to give our body everything that it needs. That's a pretty broad statement, right? Again, we can think of it simply in the 5 fundamentals, or even more simply in the 3 departments. Give it everything it needs, physically, chemically, and emotionally. And limit or eliminate all the stuff that it doesn't need, physically, chemically, and emotionally, right? If we think about this strictly from a nutrition for weight loss and health standpoint, we can think about, well, what are healthy foods? You guys already know that, right? I hope you didn't show up so that it was the first time that you heard vegetables are good for you and you should eat, well-raised animal products and things like that. I will talk about those details, but I know that you already know that. The goal of tonight is to help you create strategies to do that, because that's the transformation, going from knowing to doing, giving the body everything it needs, limiting the stuff that it doesn't need, and then once you're doing that, the last step is time. You have to do it over time. Chiropractic principle number 6, we just discussed this last week, it was a quick quiz,
I do.
is that, she's on it. That principle is there's no process that does not require time. I don't know why they officially stated it with the double negative, but I like to just say all processes require time, right? They all require time. So when we're thinking about tonight, nutrition for weight loss and health, I will, if you're going to be disappointed that I say this isn't going to be like your answer for April 1st, like by April 1st this is going to be all done, sorry, or next week, I'm not sure what people are expecting, but it takes time. It took time to get where we are, and it takes time to get where we want to go. And we have to be comfortable with that. We just simply have to find a new way of living that doesn't take so much effort and thought that it's unbearable. A new way of living that sets us on a new course, and we sail in that direction. That's the idea. That's the time. So those 5 fundamentals are these: sleep, move, eat, breathe, and focus. Whoops. That one has a timer on it, sorry. And my slide didn't come out right in the middle there, but that is nervous system health in the middle. Those are the 5 fundamentals for superior health, and I'll refer back to them a couple of times. But in my morning journaling, at least a couple of times a week, I draw out that pentagon right there with sleep, move, eat, breathe, focus, and then I make a couple of notes on how I'm doing in those areas, what I could do to get better, and what I'm actually doing well. That's a practice that's been really useful for me. This sleep is my #1 health habit, hands down. If I get my sleep, I'm bulletproof. Eating is just something I don't really have to think about it very much. You know, any of you who know my wife, she is just fantastic. She knows very well like our eating style, and she is the one in our house that's one of her roles is like she makes sure we eat really well, and we do. So that's going to be one of the things that I encourage you guys to do. That if there isn't a whole bunch of the stuff you don't need in your house, guess what? You won't eat it. Like it's not there to eat. You won't eat it. So. That's the one we're talking about tonight, obviously, and that's what we want, is we want to set on a course of saying, all right, this is how you do it. And once you create that, then it becomes easy. Who's heard this? You are what you eat. Right? It's kind of a common phrase, a little catchy phrase that's thrown out there, but have we ever actually thought of it? Like, what does that really mean? Does that mean if I eat fat, I become fat? Or does that mean if I eat sugar, I become sweeter? Like, what does that really mean? Well, let's get into it. Because if we've ever thought of it, and most of us haven't, the reason why we haven't is because we have actually been conditioned to not think about what we eat. Please know that. From an industry standpoint, the last thing the food industry wants you doing is thinking about what you're eating. Okay? They want you to eat what tastes good and keep buying it because it does. That's where they're at with it. And here's what's happened. I'm going to show you a progression of the obesity trends since 1985. This is a graph in 1985, and clearly they didn't have a whole lot of data for some of these states in here, but no states had an obesity rate over 14%. I think everybody here even remembers 1985, right? No, we're missing one. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not.
I don't know, it's so far back.
It wasn't the 60s, Fritz. It wasn't. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But, so here we are. No states above 14%. As these colors change, it means that more of the population is getting obese. So I won't spend a ton of time on this, but watch this. There's 1986, 87, 88, 89, 90. 91, we add another 15 to 19%. 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, we add the 20% and over. 98, 99, 2000, 2001, we add the 25% and over. And 2002, 2003, 2004. In 2005, we had the 30%. 2006.
That's the whole state. It's the whole country. I mean, the whole state is over 30.
Yeah, the average in the state. Yep. So, yep, the adult population more than 30% is over. This is 2006. There's one state left. Well, sorry, 3 states left that it's still in the 15 to 19% range. Okay, that's what I'm talking about over a blink of an eye. That was 1985 to 2006. Okay, it went from that in 1990 to that in 2000. Okay, this is not a genetics problem. Genetics do not change that fast. This is a lifestyle problem. Okay, the good news about that is, who's in control of lifestyle? Raise your hand if you're in control of your lifestyle. Good. Okay. Kind of. No, the answer, okay, let me be clear. Everybody needs to raise their hand to that, right? We all can be in control of our lifestyle. If the idea is like, ooh, gee, I could control it a lot better, that's fine. I get that. But we all are in control of our lifestyles. I love Calvin and Hobbes, so I couldn't resist this. The mom says, any good mail today? Not really, says the dad. You're not covering the cost of all these mailings charity requests. You've got You're Not Attractive Enough women's magazine with an article on swimsuits that minimize all your body flaws. Here are some You're Not Stylish or Ostentatious Enough catalogs, and coincidentally, an invitation to go deeper in debt from a credit card company. And here's our news magazine to identify the trend of the week we're missing. And I got Hobby magazine featuring the new equipment I ought to have. Yikes. Why do I get the feeling that society is trying to make us discontented with everything we do and insecure about who we are? Ooh. I suppose if people thought about real issues and needs instead of manufactured desires, the economy would collapse and we'd have total anarchy. So pitching this junk would make me some kind of terrorist, huh? Yep, it's our patriotic duty to buy distractions from a simple life. And then Calvin walks in. Hey Mom, I saw a bunch of products on TV that I didn't know existed, but I desperately need. And I love Bill Watterson for creating that cartoon for so long and all the greatness that it did, but this one I think it's one of my favorites that just encapsulates where we are with things. It's absolutely true that this here, if people thought about real issues and needs instead of manufactured desires, ... right? They don't want us doing that, right? They want to keep our focus on what they want our focus on. That's May's discussion, by the way. May's workshop is the focus discussion. And I think we've been completely distracted in the last year. And that's not for me to say that I think that coronavirus didn't exist and that it wasn't a big deal and all of that sort of stuff. That is not what I'm saying. However, for 40 years now, 88% of Americans die of chronic disease. Yale has stated that back in the early 2000s that 70% of chronic disease is preventable with lifestyle change. 70% is preventable with lifestyle change. 88% of Americans die of chronic disease, and all we've heard about for a year now is an infectious agent. That has to change, because there's a gorilla standing right in the middle of the room that nobody notices anymore. Okay? We need to refocus on what's for real. All right. Those ads appeal to our psychology, not our physiology. Right? They appeal to our psychology, not our physiology. We learn if you eat our product, you're going to be more fun, energetic, sexy, wholesome, exciting, manly, sociable, fulfilled. You've seen the commercials, right? If you look at them from the standpoint of like, what are they wanting me to think? They're hilarious and infuriating all at the same time. But we're forgetting something very important, and that's that we eat for only 2 reasons. Who knows them? What's that?
To live.
Yeah, but how does it allow us to do that? When we eat, how does it, because
Gives us energy.
energy and nutrients. I have done this in that quiz in a lot of high school classrooms, and you know what nobody ever comes up with? Nutrients. Yeah, way to go. This might not be her first workshop, but very rarely does anybody come up with nutrients. It's like, oh yeah, food gives us energy. And then like, that's it. That's all we really ever are taught and focus on. But the nutrients part is a huge deal. In fact, it's far bigger deal than the energy part. And if we understand that, then we develop a lasting eating habit or diet style that leads us towards health and away from illness. Because that's the simplicity of thriving, is that we've got this continuum between optimal health and wellness and really poor health and illness. And each of us are on that line somewhere. Which, by the way, show of hands, please point in the direction you would like to go on this. Okay. Okay. I didn't see. All right. I've been doing this slide since 2007, and you know what? Still 100% of people want to go that way. So thanks for being here tonight and hopefully taking a step. And by the way, I don't want tonight to just be like, oh, that was fun. Wow, that was interesting. Or man, that was super boring. I don't know what you're thinking. I want you to come away, put down some notes of things that you can do. areas that you think are most important to tweak in your own lifestyle, and at least one thing that you're going to start doing tomorrow. Okay? That's what we want. We want you to move forward. Because as we're on this line, it's the stuff that we do in our lifestyle, physically, chemically, and emotionally, that lead us either away from better health or they lead us towards it. There's no other option. There really isn't even the neutral option. There can be a pretty close to neutral option, but everything that we do, physically, chemically, and emotionally, leads us towards better health or away from it. And once we know that, then we can start structuring our life. And I really wanted an easy way for people to know how to do that. And then a question hit me and I said, well, that's a simple test. I'm going to call it the simple test. And it's this: whatever it is that you're about to do, how you're going to eat, how you're going to sleep, how you're going to move or exercise, how you're going to react to the situation you're in, whatever it is, the choice that's in front of you, take a moment before you do the next thing and ask yourself, will this make me healthier? What percent of the time, by the way, do you think you'll know the answer to that?
Every.
Almost every time, right? Pretty much every time. Every time or darn close to it, right? And then once you've done that, choose either way that you want to go. Like, I'm not opposed to going to the brewery and having a beer and a pizza, right? And I know it's not moving me in that direction, but if I can do that minimally, and I like to teach people the 80-20 rule. If 8 out of 10 of the decisions you make in life are moving you that way, then you can make 1 or 2 that don't. And it's not going to overwhelm things. Trouble is, we flip that in our society. 8 out of 10 things are moving us this way, and we pat ourselves on the back for having salad last week once. You know, yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good, right? We have to put it in perspective. And the simple test is a great way to allow you to structure that. Hello, thanks so much for tuning into the workshop here. If you are inspired to do something about your health and you're curious to see if what we do at Bright Futures Chiropractic can help you, please take a moment to text the word health to 319-656-2888, and we will get back to you with a time to consult directly with me. 15-minute consultation, free. There's no charge for that. We will talk either in person, virtually, or on the phone. We'll see what's going on with your health, and we'll see if it's a fit for what we do here at Bright Futures Chiropractic. So take this opportunity right now, do that, and then enjoy the rest of the workshop. Thanks. All right, let's dig in. What happens really to your food? Everything that we eat does one of 3 things. It becomes part of your body, either as structure or as a nutrient that allows the biochemical processes to happen. It becomes part of your body, it gets burned for energy, or it has to be eliminated. That's it. And that's important, as you'll see in just a moment. Because let's start with that elimination side of things. Who's had a sliver before? Right? It doesn't feel good. You know why it doesn't feel good? It doesn't feel good because your body doesn't want it in there. Right? And then your body mounts a response to get it out of there. Okay? So if we get that sliver, it's painful right away, so your body sends that signal. And then it gets red and it gets inflamed, and all of that is an effort of the body actually to push that thing out. Which, by the way, is that smart or stupid? Smart, right? It's all of that is supposed to happen so that you can continue to function well and you don't get infected and all of that sort of stuff. You don't have a sliver in there forever, right? It is brilliant. And the same thing happens with your food. Like I said there, so foreign objects in the body create inflammation, and our current diet style is full of what the body recognizes as foreign objects. It has no idea what these things are because they didn't exist before World War II. Manufactured food additives are like eating slivers. Keep that in mind. Your body has to do something with them. It has to either make it part of the body, and it doesn't know how to do that because they don't do that, or it has to try to burn them for energy, and usually these manufactured food additives, they can't do that with it either. So it has to eliminate them, and it does it just like it does with slivers. It does it with inflammation. So these are preservatives, food colors, etc. You look at a label, which we'll learn how to read a label in a little bit. You look at a label, and it's a bunch of stuff that isn't food. This is what has to happen to it. So there you go. So the rule is don't eat invented food, because it creates inflammation and the stress response. Your body goes into a neurohormonal stress response that is the fight or flight defense mode, because it thinks it's basically under siege, it's being attacked, and that's not a state from which you can also grow and heal. You can't be in the defense state and the growth and healing state at the same time. The key point there is inflammation and stress response are the cause of all chronic disease. And how many Americans, what percent of Americans die of chronic disease? 88. Almost 90%. By the way, less than 5% every year die of infectious disease, just to put it in perspective, including last year. Okay. As a culture, we're eating ourselves to death. We already knew that. What it creates, though, is this perfect hormonal storm. We eat toxic and deficient foods. These are the invented foods that I'm talking about. They don't have anything good for us. They don't have any useful things. That's the deficient part. And they're toxic because our bodies don't really know what they are. Our dietary timing is a major problem with this, and I'll talk about dietary timing in just a bit. Our sedentary lives and our social stress, which we're not going to get too much into those. This was last month's workshop. It's up on our YouTube channel, by the way. Social stress, where we're going to get into breathing and focusing in the next 2 months. But we are going to talk about these two things, because that creates this hormonal storm that oftentimes is a huge trigger for insulin release. Now, most of us have heard of the hormone insulin at this point, and I'm not going to get into the biochemistry of it, but when insulin floods out, it triggers your body to store fat. Okay? And as I mentioned in maybe an email that you got, you don't turn fat into fat. It's a really fascinating thing. You don't eat fat and it turns into fat. Do you guys know what you do eat and it turns into fat? Sugar. Yep, absolutely. So elevated insulin locks you into fat storage mode. Remember the chart that I showed with the obesity trends changing? We are locked into fat storage mode, right? And I hate to say it, but that's been because of research that was done and misinterpreted in the 60s, where they thought that fat, and red meat in particular, was the cause of heart disease. So they scared everybody in the country into behaving differently. What am I talking about? The 60s? Never mind. Sorry, I have to rein myself in a little bit sometimes. They scared us into behaving differently on false data, or data that they misinterpreted, and so we all stopped eating fat, or we started eating manufactured fat products, either no fat or manufactured fat products, and we replace that with a whole bunch of carbohydrates, because the bottom of the pyramid is all grains, right? Remember that pyramid? And that's what happened to our obesity in the United States. I don't think it would be a stretch for me to say that diet strategy didn't work, and we haven't been given anything better since from the policymakers. So thanks again for being here, because we've got a better way than that. So what should we do? We got to eat like a champion, right? That's what I encourage people to do. Not eat just because you need to eat, but really think about it like you're training for something. Because you are. You're training for whoever depends on you. You're training for the thing you want to do next summer or next holiday season. You are training for something, and you need to be a champion when you get there. That's important. Eat for nutrients and energy. Eat real food. Single ingredient foods. Yeah, no, not. Can't say. This is gonna go on YouTube, so I can't throw out specific names. But real food, single ingredient foods, things that you can look at it and go, oh, that's a such and such, right? That's a single ingredient food. More plants, less meat. In specific, less processed meat. Okay, I'll talk about that differentiation later, because I already mentioned that we don't actually eat enough protein a lot of the time. So I don't mean to be confusing. I'll clear that up in a second. And then mind your timing, the timing of your eating, and watch your beverages. This is a big, big, big problem. And then finally, supplement for an advantage. It would be really nice to live in a world where we did not need nutritional supplements because our diets were all so sufficient and healthy, but we don't. So supplements can be really useful. And I'm going to start with that part because it's kind of, I'm going to hit the basics and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things. So supplements for general health. Supplements provide a way to combat deficiency in our diets. And we have terribly deficient diets currently. Quality is absolutely the key. Good food and good supplements are worth paying for. Do you know at what point in the last 100 years we've actually paid the least amount of our per capita income for food? Right now. Right now. We paid double per capita our income in the 60s than we do now. About 20% of our income went to food in the 60s, about 10% goes now. So the idea that good food is just too expensive means that our priorities have changed. It doesn't mean that it's actually too expensive, it's that cheap food is cheap and good food is valuable. That's why I encourage people to invest in it. If we're going to supplement, the ones that we suggest for general health, and there's a whole lot of complexity to the world of supplements, just know two things. Quality is key, and here are the 4 things we think are fundamental for everybody. Vitamin D, fish oil, probiotics, and a high-quality multivitamin. I'll dig into those briefly. Here we go. Vitamin D.
That's everyone in every stage of life?
Yes.
Just about.
Yep. And the amounts change, you know, somewhat. And sometimes specific individuals need additional things to that. But it would be super rare where it wasn't like, oh, that person shouldn't have this, one of those 4 things. Yep. So good question. And for those watching online, that question was, is that the same for everybody at all stages of life? So those 4 things are generally that way. Vitamin D, 5,000 IU a day or more. 10,000 is actually generally recognized as safe at this point. That's actually a technical term, the GRAS thing. It's a great idea to measure your vitamin D levels. I encourage twice a year right now, coming out of winter. And then in September or so, coming out of summer, that's a great time to get a sense of where your vitamin D levels are, and then you can supplement appropriately from there. Yes, we can make vitamin D naturally from the sun, because that's what a lot of people, I supplement sometimes in the winter, but I don't in the summer because we make it from the sun. That is only 4 months out of the year in Iowa that we can sufficiently make vitamin D from the sun, and I guess I didn't put it in there. And it's between basically 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So what percent of our population is actually out getting the sun between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.? Not many, right? Maybe our kids running around, you know, on summer break, that kind of thing. But most of us working folks do not. I know I do not. And vitamin D deficiency is a major cause of immune system problems. Because this is what we've been told all year, right? Like with all the masking and the hand washing and the staying away from people, that also make sure your vitamin D levels are sufficient. Nope, I haven't heard it once. It's amazing. A couple other countries are getting into it, which is kind of interesting too. Some European countries have actually, they are giving everybody vitamin D. kind of a fascinating approach. We haven't heard any of it here, but it's absolutely crucial for immune system issues, and it's important for many other reasons. It's one of only 2 substances in the body that every cell in our body has a receptor for. The other substance is human growth hormone. So it's really important stuff. Probiotics, not getting into this in great detail. If digestive issues are an issue for you, we've got a couple of good workshops that Eleni and I did last year. Those are up on our YouTube channel also, or feel free to schedule to talk with Eleni about that. She has great expertise in that. So basically, probiotics are good bacteria for the digestive tract. If we're going to be eating healthfully, we need to have our digestive tract working well so that we can process those nutrients and do good things with them. Causes of imbalance for probiotics are processed food diet, lack of fiber in the diet, and prescription drugs. Specifically antibiotics, and especially antibiotics, but not only antibiotics. Prescription drugs in general. Remember the sliver thing that I told you about? The body, prescription drugs are specifically manufactured to go in and irritate some stuff and to change how the body is working. The body always is working to eliminate those. And I'm not saying that they all just ought to be banned and we shouldn't ever do that sort of thing. That's not what I'm saying, but we need to be conscious of what we're doing when we're using those products. In that biochemical dimension, again, eat for nutrients and energy. Tell me what you notice about all these products.
They're colorful.
They're colorful, they're plants, they're fresh.
They're not cooked.
They're not
They're always
cooked.
fresh.
They're
Yeah.
individual.
Yep.
I mean, they're by itself, it stands alone.
Yes, they're single ingredient foods, right? There's not a thing that popped up there that you couldn't, you weren't like, oh, raspberries, oh, peas, look at that, asparagus, asparagus season's coming up, that's gonna be good. You know, like we all know what these things are. Nutrients and energy, these things provide tremendous nutrients when they're colorful like that. We need to eat that real food, food as close to its natural state as possible. So you'll notice things now like, oh, that's not anywhere close to its natural state. You know, I'll talk about barcodes in a minute in food labels, but if it has a barcode, it is not a single ingredient food unless it's like a bag of apples or something like that. They put barcodes on those, but just know. And here's kind of the progression of eating it as close to its natural state as possible. Raw to steamed to grilled to baked to boiled. We're talking about maintaining nutrients. And there are a few caveats there where broccoli, for instance, actually releases some of its nutrients and makes it easier for us to digest if it's steamed. So there are some like that, but in general, we're not getting into the weeds of that sort of thing. Eat real food and eat it as close to its natural state as possible. This is fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, well-raised animal products like meat and eggs, more real, less processed foods. That's the simplicity of it. And again, if I were just to have brought a whiteboard in and had you guys tell me what is a healthy way to eat, this is the sort of thing you would have told me. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. But the reason why is simple. More whole plant foods equals more nutrients and fewer calories. Right? It's the first time I've mentioned the word calorie. You noticed? Mm-hmm. I'm not too concerned about calories because I'm far more concerned about nutrients. I think the reason we overconsume calories is because we underconsume nutrients. I think that there's a trigger, I know that there's a trigger in our bodies that when we've consumed enough nutrients, we don't continue to eat. When we haven't consumed enough nutrients, we continue to eat. So if you're a food company, CEO, and you're creating a food product that you want people to buy and buy a lot of and eat a lot of, do you put a lot of nutrients in it? No, because they know the physiology. They know how it works. The less nutrients you put in, the more likely people are going to keep eating it. Yeah, carrot farmers have a hard time with this, unfortunately. You can only eat so many carrots, so your body's like, that's good, had it. It's not like a bag of chips, you know, all right. And then better protein choices. So more whole plants, better protein choices, plants, nuts, seeds, beans, if you can handle beans. Beans are a bit of an interesting topic I won't get into. And then well-raised animal products. Now, in this area, we are amazingly fortunate. We have lots of producers around us that really do produce animals in very healthful ways. So we have lists of some of those folks at the clinic. If you're interested in that, feel free to contact us because, I mean, certainly between my family and Elaine's family, like we have a lot of contacts of people who just raise wonderful animal products. Yeah, we have access to the best meat and eggs in the world. And then avoid processed food. My line is beware of the barcode. If the thing you're eating has a barcode on it, you have to be a ninja label reader. You have to be really, really good at reading labels. So if you just avoid the barcode, not like don't look at it, avoid, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you just avoid things with the barcode, then you're gonna eat these things. And that's good. In the simplicity of it, this is what we taught our son years ago. If you look at your plate, you need to be able to answer where are the plants, the fat, and the protein. Because if we have plants, if we have fat, if we have protein, then we've got a complete meal there that's going to nourish our body and lead us towards better health. All right, here's the skill drill for label reading. Here's what we got to do. Short ingredient list, ideally 5 or less, ideally 1, but you know, I guess acceptably 5 or less. Avoid added sugars, and these are the things: high fructose corn syrup, sugar, corn syrup, anything that ends in an OSE is actually a sugar form. Maltose, dextrose, all of those things. Eliminate trans fat and vegetable oils. I can actually kind of take this trans fat one off because the food industry really got clever with that. So it has to label trans fat on the label now, and you'll almost never see a product now that has trans fat any other than 0. It's because they've figured out how to make it less than 1 gram per serving, sometimes by manipulating their serving size, and so it'll say 0 on the label. So you have to know what you're looking for, and that's what you'd look for partially hydrogenated oils. If it has partially hydrogenated, I just look for that word hydrogenated, and you know it's not a healthy product there. Acceptable oils, on the other hand, are these, and it's a nice simple list: olive, coconut, avocado, and if you're feeling extra exotic, macadamia nut oil. But really the first 3, it's all you'd ever need. You can cook on the stovetop with coconut and avocado. You can add olive oil to anything fresh. Don't cook with olive oil. It will it doesn't do well at temperature. But these other 2 do, and you can just do anything you want. You can make your salad dressings. You can saute your veggies. You can add it to a smoothie. Any of those will work with those things. And then please know that added colors or preservatives indicate low quality food. And I don't think if we actually polled people and said, what do you want to eat, high quality food or low quality food, that people would choose the low quality food option, right? That we would all consciously, cognitively say, I want to eat high quality food. But remember that graph? Like that graph doesn't come from, or not the graph, but the United States map, that does not come from people eating high quality foods, right? It's a lifestyle wreck that we've gone through. All right, so here's the label for Skippy peanut butter. You tell me what you see. Hydrogenated oil. Yep.
Sugar's the second. And sugar.
Good work, guys. Good work. Sugar's the second thing, followed by 2 or 3 different types of hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. Yeah, and then salt, which I have no problem with salt, actually. But that's not what we need, right? So now we need to be able to look at that and go, oh. And it's interesting. So we eat, you know, nut butters and stuff. Our family enjoys that. And every once in a while, I'll now have a nut butter with sugar in it, and it's like, whoa, I never knew. And I grew up on the stuff, you know, I never knew how sweet they were until you don't eat them. Here is the label for an acceptable peanut butter: peanuts and salt. And if for some reason you're avoiding salt, you can do it with just peanuts. Like it really does. It can be a single ingredient food. You might be wondering, I've mentioned salt a couple of times. I really don't have any problem with salt. There are some people who hyper respond to salt, so if you're that, you need to know that. But they've actually found that salt too low in the diet is as detrimental to health as salt way too high. And the only way to have it too high is by eating processed food. That's maybe a bit of an overgeneralization, but it's very, very difficult to add enough salt to the whole foods that you're cooking to have too much in your diet. Is that,
I would agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't overstep on that.
Nope.
Okay.
That's good. And I was just gonna add one thing too, like cottonseed oil and soybean oil. Like if you look at a product like that, it will probably say trans fat free, because in the form that those are in that product, they are not trans fats yet. But the moment they get digested and hit the heat of your body, they transform into trans fats. So
Yeah,
that is what sunflower seed oil, soybean oil, safflower seed oil, cottonseed oil, those all do it. Those are the vegetable oils that I recommend that people stay away from. Canola, it is instantly transformed into trans fats in your body, and it's hugely inflammatory and one of the biggest contributors to heart disease.
So eat healthy fat, don't eat those fats. Okay, they're totally different stuff in the body, from completely healthy, wonderful fuel to slivers.
Can you say something about saturated fat for coconut?
Sure. So that was one of the things from the 70s, was that, oh, these animal products, they have saturated fats in them, and we found this connection between saturated fats and heart disease. The good news is that data was misinterpreted. There actually isn't that connection anymore. So as long as we're eating well-raised animal products, or I guess it's not up on that screen anymore, or the handful of plant fats that are saturated, like there is some in coconut, not much by the way, and there's some in palm oils, that it is not a strong promoter of heart disease.
It's not.
It is
Because
not.
I know there's some heart doctors that'll say that it is.
Absolutely.
They are.
Absolutely. There are a lot of heart doctors that will say it is. Maybe I'll get a comment from some of them on YouTube. I don't know. Probably they won't take the time to listen this far into this workshop. But there absolutely are, because they were trained in the way of the old food pyramid. And that was based on these studies that were done in the 60s and early 70s. And they're just not true. And if our goal is a vibrantly, robustly healthy American population, we've gone the exact opposite direction from that since those recommendations were made. Great question.
One just simple comment is, I know we eat too much of the good foods as well. Europeans eat much smaller portions.
Yes.
We eat big portions. We promote big portions. We get used to big portions. I'm used to big portions. So I'm just aware of it, so I'm trying not to eat
Absolutely.
more just because it's there.
Yeah.
Never clean your plate. I do that well.
Absolutely. Oh, I was certainly from a family where you didn't get up from the table unless your plate was clean, right? And it was big portions. So the comment there for those of you watching online is that we also are conditioned to big portions in the United States. And other countries don't do that. In fact, the Japanese have an ethic where they have a word for it. I don't know what it is, but they have a word for it that means only eat till you're 80% full. Which is an interesting thing. And I have worked on that, and it's, I don't have a weight problem, but I want to be eating in a way that promotes my long-term health and longevity. And I'm gonna be 162 pounds whether I eat 4,000 calories a day or 1,200 calories a day. That's just kind of where I'm at with things. And I've been working on that 80% thing because it's not how I was raised. It was whatever it is on your plate is what you're eating, or you're not getting up from that. So thank you for that. Portion control is a big part.
And I think some of that came out of the world wars.
Yes.
All the lack of food, when it was on your plate, you eat it all.
Absolutely,
You know,
yes.
So it's a progression and a reason why that was said.
Yeah, so the cultural part of the depression, well, the world wars and then the depression, Depression obviously in between the world wars, causing this generation of people who wanted to make sure we were utilizing every resource that we had, and food was one of the most precious resources that we had, so you weren't going to waste any of it. And that actually at that point meant you didn't put more on your plate than you should eat, right? They were very clear about that. All right, that's the chicken McNugget list. Yeah, there we go. I won't make you pick through that one, but I'll just let you know. Why does something that calls itself chicken have 39 ingredients?
Kids like it, they don't care.
They don't, right? They have specifically manufactured that to appeal to our taste buds, not to our health. Like, there's 39 ingredients. Hello, thanks so much for tuning into the workshop here. If you are inspired to do something about your health and you're curious to see if what we do at Bright Futures Chiropractic can help you, please take a moment to text the word health to 319-656-2888, and we will get back to you with a time to consult directly with me. 15-minute consultation, free, there's no charge for that. We will talk either in person, virtually, or on the phone. We'll see what's going on with your health, and we'll see if it's a fit for what we do here at Bright Futures Chiropractic. So take this opportunity right now, do that, and then enjoy the rest of the workshop. Thanks. I kind of marvel at the food. We have a friend who's a food scientist, and she's worked for various companies, currently in General Mills. But yeah, it's amazing how they can manipulate food specifically so that we eat more of it. All right, meal timing. This is something that has gotten a fair bit of press over the last several years now. Sometimes people talk about intermittent fasting or fasting in general, time-restricted eating, that sort of stuff. I'll kind of get to those things right now, but the reality is that eating too often is bad for insulin. So there's been the thing out there about like eating 6 meals a day, and there are some, of course, in a population there's variation on, some people might do better with that and some people might not, but eating too often keeps our insulin levels raised. And what does insulin do? Puts us in what mode? Fat storage mode, right? So that's not necessarily a good thing. It was suggested to do that because it would level out our insulin response. It wouldn't go up and down as much. But when we combine that style of eating, those 6 times a day, with a high carbohydrate diet, instead of having fluctuations in insulin, we just have insulin. And that's not good. That was not the goal. So if we're eating the right types of food, we can do the 6 times a day thing, and it doesn't have as great an effect on that keeping insulin high, but it's still ultimately not how human beings were designed to eat. Like, human beings were not designed in a place or time where food was available all the time. Quite the opposite. So that's where the meal timing, we can work to mimic that. You have to give that digestive system a break. The digestive system was used to going long periods of time with really nothing to do, as far as digesting food, at least. Very important for our immune system function at all times, but as far as digesting food, it'd be a long time. I've heard that sometimes the Native Americans in this northern part of the country, they could go near a month without eating food, or significant amounts of food. We were very well adapted to not eating food. What we're not adapted to is eating food all the time. So give that digestive system a break. So I like the term time-restricted eating instead of intermittent fasting, just because technically fasting is a bit of a different thing where you're going much longer periods of time. Time-restricted eating is where you have a daily life where you go 14 to 16 hours on a break without eating, and then you have an 8 to 10 hour window where you have your meals in there. And sometimes people take that 8 to 10 hour eating window as like they have to eat for 8 to 10 hours. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's when you can eat. Please don't eat the whole time. But that 14 to 16 hour break really lets the body get into a healing mode. It gives it an energetic rest. It allows the digestive system itself to heal, the lining of that digestive system, which is super duper important. And then when we're putting good, nutritious food in our eating window, then we can use it fully. And I have yet to find a person who's really done this well with healthy food and creating a routine around this that doesn't just absolutely feel fantastic with it.
I lost 40 pounds in 2020 doing that.
Nice, you're the one. I mean, what I mean by that is that kind of went the opposite direction in 2020, is that most people gained 40 pounds, right? We have for those of you watching online, we have a person in the audience who says she lost 40 pounds by doing time-restricted eating in 2020.
And a lot of yoga.
And a lot of yoga, yeah, sure, it can't be the only thing, right? And we'll certainly get to that. We have to have physical activity, we have to have good sleep, we have to breathe right, we have to focus right. Like, all of the fundamentals are important, but way to go. That's absolutely worthy of a round of applause. Let's get 40 pounds.
No, just tell me how to get rid of the 10 I need. That's what I'm here to.
We'll work on it. You might already be on your way. I know, and sometimes those plateaus hit, and that's actually a lady could probably be of a lot of help, like figuring out the specifics of that too. So that would be good.
To really get the benefits of intermittent fasting, does it have to be every day?
Not
Or
necessarily.
can you do it, like do intermittent fasting 3 or 4 times a week?
Yeah, great question. So the question is, does it have to be all the time, like that's how you do it, or can it be 3 or 4 times a week? You can get a lot of benefit out of 2 times a week. 3 or 4 times a week would be fantastic. I'll let Elaine jump in here if she has any other
I
comments.
would agree with that.
Yeah.
Some is better than none if that's the route you want to go.
Mm-hmm. One of the tricks with it is it can be a little tougher to do it and like keep your stride with that. But sometimes if it's like, okay, during the work week, Monday through Thursday I'm gonna do it, and then Friday through Saturday I don't, like having a rhythm to it like that is good. It's like, what I wouldn't encourage is waking up and like, is today the day I'm doing the fasting thing? Like, should today be that? Your psychology will outvote you every time. It's like, now I'm having breakfast. So that would look like if you're done eating your evening meal at 6, then you would start eating at 8 or 10 a.m. the next day. That doesn't seem so bad, right? No, that's not that big of a deal. All right, and then leave time before bed. Sleep workshop was back that was January. That was the one we didn't have audio for, but I've got a really good one of those from previous on YouTube. Also, if you want to look at the sleep workshop, one of the key points to that is eat well before bed. Give yourself plenty of time, ideally 3 hours. Okay, I didn't hear a gasp from this room at least. That's good. But ideally 3 hours. I have trouble with this because my lifestyle is set up that I usually get home from work about 6:30 and I go to bed at 8:30 or to 8:45. So I don't have 3 hours between getting home from work. But like on nights like tonight, where I know I'm getting home at 8 o'clock, I'm already doing my fasting side of it. I just know I'm not going to eat tonight, and I'm okay with that. So I'll wait till tomorrow on it. So sorting out your days and knowing how you're what strategy you're taking to it is really an important thing.
So I got a question. I work 3rd shift. I mean, that's a whole entire different world.
Yes, it
So,
is. I'm sorry.
it really is. But I wouldn't trade it. But so I usually will do the fasting. I'll start at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do my fasting. I usually wake up between like 2:30 and 3. And then I'll eat between 4, because usually by 4 I'm starving. So between 4 and midnight I'm eating. Is that okay to do it that way, or should I do? Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, because your body, I mean, 3rd shift is a whole different beast because it really isn't good for human beings to do that. But your body is as used to it as it can be, and so in your regular day, you're still choosing that like chunk of time.
Okay.
And yes, so
All right.
yeah, you're doing it
All right.
fine.
Good.
It's just you have a lot of other challenges
Yeah.
physiologically to deal with by the fact that you're staying up all night to work.
Right.
So yes, great question. All right, now let's get into beverages. We'll keep cruising. So, what beverages do human beings after infancy need to drink?
Water.
Anything else?
No.
You're right. No. The answer is no. So, That's it. That's what we need. But wow, what an industry, right? Can you imagine the beverage industry? It could like stand beside the food industry as its whole own industry. Wow, beverages are just amazing. But we need to eliminate added sugars and artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners show up as a lot of things, and it's interesting. They're name shifting a bunch of these things. But I don't even know if NutraSweet is actually a term anymore. Do you still see it? Okay. There's aspartame, and then the things like Splenda, sucralose, sweet and low. There's acesulfame K. You know, they start putting in all these crazy names, and you have no idea what they are if you're just looking at a thing. But they're artificial sweeteners. So those are, I think, one of the most dangerous food additives out there. Because interestingly, they don't provide any calories, which that's what they were designed for, to not deliver calories. So they have no benefit to us. Keep in mind, calories are beneficial because we do need energy. We need things that we can burn into energy. They provide none of that. And they have found they still create the insulin response because your body thinks it just ate sweet things. So it ups the insulin. And so the insulin goes out there and it's looking around and it, you know, whatever carbohydrates it does find, what does it do to it then? Stores it as? There we go. That's the physiology there. Check this out. So lots of people do this. I mean, I know that I say it seems like a big number, but drinking 12 20-ounce Mountain Dews is a pound of weight gain. Okay? And somebody might be like, 12, who's going to drink that in a day? I'm like, no. In a week. And other people, oh, you're right. Because lots of people drink 2 of those a day. No problem, right? That's from the calories alone, let alone from the inflammatory effects of that. And there's absolutely zero health benefit to these things, right?
Is that the sugared one?
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but I was a teacher, and so when I was with my elementary kids, I would teach them. I put a glass of water, and I would take 2 full cups of sugar, and I poured it into the water slowly, and the water did not overflow the glass.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 full cups of sugar and things like that.
Yeah.
That's where the calories come from.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, what you just said about the stuff that replaces it, people who drink a lot of those, what is it?
The diet sodas.
The sugar-free things
Yep.
actually gain more weight than they lose.
Yes. Yeah, they've never been clinically shown to actually help people lose weight, even though that's the only reason they got FDA clearance. Yikes. Well, but they're still there. So we need to know that. Each one of those Mountain Dews would take 45 minutes of aerobics or 30 minutes of full court basketball to burn off, by the way, just the calories inside of it. And then you still have the toxic effect from it. So we need to drink not for sweetness and enjoyment, but for hydration. That's why we need to drink. So water is great, and tea works too, also. Nice, regular old brewed tea.
Is stevia used in drinks?
Stevia is used in drinks, yeah, and it's certainly less of a problem than like the artificial sweeteners. It's literally an herb that hits our brain as sweet.
And it's okay.
So the question is stevia okay? And if so, in a transition, I think yes, it is. It's like better than not doing it, and I encourage people to not need the sweetness. Like to train your taste buds away from the sweetness. Yep. All right.
Would you quick talk about how much hydration is the recommendation?
Sure. Yeah, it's not going to be shockingly different than what you've heard before. So the question is, how much hydration is the recommendation? I like to start at a baseline of 50% of body weight in ounces a day. And then for every 30 minutes of moderate exercise, I like people to add 10 ounces of water. Do you have anything different than that?
I do not.
Okay. All right.
Or if you
Good.
drink coffee or something that's dehydrating, I always add in 8 to 10 ounces of water for every 8 ounces of dehydrating drink.
Yes, great question. Great point. So if you're having dehydrating things like coffee, which I'm not anti-coffee, but I'm pro-good coffee, whole nother topic there, but it still isn't a hydrating beverage. So you need to add 8 to 10 ounces of water for every cup of it that you're having. All right, let's put it together then. If you don't have a great answer to this question, then it's really hard to make change. It's really hard to go do something different tomorrow. So why is wellness important to you? Why do you want to move in that direction? I really encourage, if there is one thing maybe you do tomorrow, you journal about that. You know, take 5 minutes and write, why is my health important to me? And what I want people to get to is what we consider, what we call the inspired why. And you know you get there when you get goosebumps. When the thing that you want to do, or the person you want to be with, or the activity you want to participate in, or the event that you want to make it to, you know, whatever it is, when you get to that point where it's like, yeah, that's the thing, and you get goosebumps, that's your inspired why. Those sorts of things in my life are why I rolled my feet out of bed at 4:45 this morning and why I'm still going now, right? Because I know I've got to show up for my practice members, for my family, and for our culture, essentially. And I know that seems like a big weight. I'm not saying that I'm going to save our culture, but people aren't hearing these things right now. And so that's why I do a full day on Monday, and then I still want to show up for these sorts of things. And that is one of my inspired whys. I need to make sure I'm at my best so I can do that. It ends up being a 15-hour day otherwise, and I wouldn't have the energy to do that if I wasn't well to do it with. Then you need to plan for steady, realistic improvement in the 5 fundamentals. And again, sleep, move, eat, breathe, focus. Steady, realistic improvement. And by the way, I'm all for a pantry purge, right? Like, maybe that's your thing. Like, maybe it's like you're going into the pantry tomorrow, and anything that you don't recognize the ingredients for, you're tossing out. You know, I'm all for that. I think that's a fantastic thing to do. But if it's like, nope, tomorrow I'm simply going to make sure I have 1 more serving of a whole food at each meal, that's a great starting point. So whatever is your comfort level, plan for that steady, realistic improvement in that eat dimension is what we're talking about today. You can certainly check out the previous recordings for these other 2, and we've got these next 2 coming in the next 2 months. So if you're on our email list, you'll be getting information about those. If you're not, make sure that we get your information if you'd like to know when our workshops and everything are coming up. And then write down your goals. Write down your goals and your plans. And by the way, by goals, I don't necessarily love a weight loss goal of I want to lose this many pounds, because you can't go out and lose weight. You can go out and do things that help your body get to a healthier weight, but you can't just, you know what I'm saying? Like, losing weight is not an activity. Eating well and having very specific things on how you're going to do that, those are actionable items. Making sure that you're increasing your physical activity, that's an actionable item. Making sure you're getting a sleep opportunity of at least 8 hours a night, that's an actionable item, and very good for weight loss, by the way. All those things are actionable. That's what I encourage you to do for the goals. So there's outcome goals, and you can certainly throw it out there, but make sure that you have process goals also, the things that you can do day to day that help you get there. Because then you have small wins, small wins, small wins, small wins, small win on your way to the big win. Very, very important part there. And then make sure you get a buddy and or a coach for accountability. And both Eleni and I, we love doing it. We love helping people structure their lives in a way that sets them on that course towards better health. It's what we do. We're in that 3rd tier of healthcare that's health promotion. That's what we love to do. It's why we're here. It's the services that we offer at Bright Futures. So if you're interested in any of that, please absolutely let us know about that. And that's where we talk a bit now about wellness chiropractic. Because here I am, I'm a chiropractor. I just talked to you for an hour and 15 minutes about food. Why? Like, how did that happen? You know, aren't chiropractors back doctors? Don't they help with like back pain and neck pain and stuff like that? Well, when we apply chiropractic in a wellness model, it fits perfectly. Wellness chiropractic is about having that nervous system functioning in a healthy way, the front end of that Thrive formula, remember? And when that nervous system is working well, then we can add on to our healthy habits, then we can build health from there. But without a healthy functioning spine and nervous system, you're gonna be stuck. We've just seen it time and time and time again in the past 14 years. People are stuck until their nervous system works well. And that's wellness chiropractic. It helps your body work its best. It's safe, it's natural care for the nervous system, which is the most important system in our body because it controls and regulates all of the other systems. That's its job in the body, is to make sure the rest of the body is working well. It coordinates and controls that inborn ability to heal and regulate, and it eases the stress response when it's working well. So your true wellness plan must require lifestyle planning, having those wellness lifestyle choices set up as the way that you live life: sleep, move, eat, breathe, focus. You see the rhythm there. There's 5 fundamentals, and then add wellness chiropractic care to that. Let's recap the night. Put it all together. In that biochemical dimension, we need to eat for nutrients and energy. We need to eat real food. More plants, less meat, and meal timing needs to go on that line. I probably forgot it on this slide. The eat breakfast thing I actually took out of the original one because I like the meal timing thing better. I used to be big on starting off with in a healthy way, and if you're having breakfast, please start it off in a healthy way, but I like the meal timing there instead, and then drink water and add quality supplements to that. We'll certainly take questions if you have them. We do need to be out of here because the Y closes down in about 10-15 minutes, but we'll certainly take that. I'm going to go ahead and close down the recording prior to that. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for watching online, and certainly for those of you here and those of you online, if you are interested in the services we have to offer. So we do a couple of things. We do, of course, like the chiropractic thing, right? Like show up, get that chiropractic evaluation, and that entire evaluation that I talked through earlier, we do off the street for just $265. And for those of you here tonight, if you're interested in getting that evaluation, we'll do it for just $67. If you're watching online, feel free to send us a message. We'll see what we can do for you. But just $67. And maybe even better is that an initial evaluation with Eleni that includes the entire chiropractic evaluation, that is at our absolute bare bones price that we have to keep it at, is $170. So that is, there's really no better deal in healthcare, in my opinion.